Have you ever wondered where the roots of our modern economic system originate? Let's take a trip back in time, to the 16th century in Europe, where capitalism was just starting to sprout. This was a time when feudalism was losing its footing, and a new economic structure was taking shape, one where the means of production were privately owned and profits were distributed through free markets. Adam Smith, a name synonymous with the genesis of capitalism. Born in 1723, Smith was the author of the seminal work, The Wealth of Nations, published in 1776. This book was no ordinary tome. It was a blueprint for a new economic order. Smith proposed that economic decisions were best left to self-regulating market forces, a concept that still resonates today. Through the invisible hand of the market, individuals pursuing their own interests would inadvertently promote the good of the community. This was a radical departure from the feudal system where economic decisions were often dictated by the nobility. While we're talking about influential figures, it would be remiss not to mention David Ricardo, a British economist who left an indelible mark on the theory of capitalism. Born in 1772, Ricardo introduced the world to the law of comparative advantage during the 19th century. This law explained why it's profitable for two parties to trade, even if one is superior in all forms of production. It was a game changer, presenting a compelling case for international trade and cooperation, rather than isolation and self-sufficiency. Capitalism, with its roots in Europe, gradually began to shape the world's economic structure. It promised a system where anyone could prosper through their own enterprise, where wealth was not a birthright, but something to be earned. And while it's not without its critics, there's no denying that capitalism has had a profound impact on the world as we know it today. Capitalism, despite its many strengths, has not been without its share of trials and tribulations. One of the most significant trials in the history of capitalism was the Wall Street crash of 1929, a catastrophic event that sent shockwaves around the globe. The stock market, the beating heart of capitalism, suffered a fatal heart attack. Billions of dollars were wiped out in a matter of days, leading to a period of economic downturn known as the Great Depression. For an entire decade, the world was gripped by economic uncertainty, with unemployment reaching unprecedented levels and businesses closing their doors for good. This financial disaster raised serious questions about the sustainability of capitalism. Critics argued that the system's inherent instability and propensity for boom and bust cycles were to blame for the crisis. However, defenders of capitalism contended that it was not the system itself, but rather the lack of adequate regulations that led to the crash. It was during this time of economic hardship that a new economic theory emerged known as Keynesianism. Named after the British economist John Maynard Keynes, this theory posited that in times of economic downturn, government intervention was necessary to stimulate the economy. According to Keynes, when private investment falls short, the government should step in and increase public spending to kickstart economic growth. Keynesianism marked a significant departure from the laissez-faire approach that had previously dominated economic thought. It suggested that capitalism, though robust, could not always self-regulate and sometimes required a helping hand from the government. This idea was revolutionary at the time and led to a re-evaluation of the role of government in the economy. Despite these challenges, capitalism weathered the storms and adapted to the changing times. Over the years, it has proven to be a resilient system, capable of evolving and adjusting to new economic realities. Even when faced with significant setbacks, capitalism has managed to bounce back, demonstrating its enduring strength and adaptability. Fast forward to the 21st century, the face of capitalism has evolved, but its essence remains intact. The core principles of capitalism, private ownership and free markets, have endured through the centuries, but the system has seen some pivotal shifts. In the 1970s and 1980s, Keynesianism, with its emphasis on government spending to stimulate the economy, fell out of favor. It was supplanted by monetarism, a doctrine advocating control of the money supply to manage inflation and recession. But this shift was temporary. The 2009 credit crunch saw a resurgence of Keynesian thought as governments around the world pumped money into their economies to stimulate growth and prevent a global depression. Yet capitalism, for all its resilience and adaptability, has not been without its critics. High unemployment, yawning income disparities, and environmental degradation are often attributed to capitalism's relentless pursuit of profit. The gap between the haves and the have-nots, both within and between nations, has widened significantly in recent decades. Critics argue that capitalism inherently favors the rich at the expense of the poor, perpetuating inequality and social injustice. Moreover, the environmental costs of unfettered capitalism are becoming increasingly apparent. The relentless drive for growth and consumption is depleting the Earth's resources and exacerbating climate change. Critics argue that capitalism, with its emphasis on short-term profit, is ill-equipped to deal with long-term environmental challenges. Yet, defenders of capitalism argue that it is the most efficient creator of wealth that the world has ever seen. They point out that capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty and provided unprecedented levels of prosperity. Moreover, they argue, in a capitalist system, each worker owns and can sell his own labor, ensuring individual freedom and opportunity. In spite of its criticisms, capitalism continues to influence the global economy, shaping societies and nations in its wake. Whether you view it as a force for good or ill, there's no denying the profound impact capitalism has had and continues to have on our world. As we stand at the crossroads of economic evolution, it's time to ponder the impact of capitalism on our society. Born from the ashes of feudalism in the 16th century, capitalism has etched its narrative into the annals of human history. Its triumphs are palpable: the creation of unprecedented wealth and a system where each individual can sell his own labor. Critics, however, point to its tribulations: high unemployment, income disparities, and environmental degradation. Championed by Adam Smith and David Ricardo, capitalism's tenets of self-regulating market forces and comparative advantage have shaped our global economic landscape. Yet, its inability to prevent the Wall Street crash of 1929 and the Great Depression of the 1930s has led to the rise and fall of various economic theories, from Keynesianism to monetarism. Whether capitalism will continue to dominate our economic landscape or if a new system will emerge, only time will tell. But one thing is certain: the footprint of capitalism is indelible and its impact undeniable.